Hey guys, Lioness Intuition here. I'm finally starting the mini-series on the different topics which I think you guys will really benefit from. Now, just a couple of things first. Please keep in mind that the topics that I'm going to speak on, the information that I'm sharing with you is from my own interpretation, my own understanding, and what resonates for me at a soul level. So please, if what I share with you does not resonate for you, I encourage you to go and seek out the information for yourself and find what does. There are so many knowledgeable people on the different subjects that I'm going to speak of. I please just ask, don't limit yourself to one specific person. Please read a lot of different information written by lots of different people so you can formulate your own opinion for what resonates with you. Okay. Now the other thing is that I have written the information on the side. I personally really struggle with public speaking in any sort of in any aspect of that, right? Writing speeches, speaking in public. I personally really struggle with that. I find that tarot cards are different. It's more relaying the information that I receive from the divine, which my physical makeup interprets differently than public speaking. So with that being said, when I look to the side, please just know I'm reading what I have written, and I'm also trying to learn how to overcome the difficulties in which I face through public speaking. So I really appreciate you guys for supporting my channel and allowing me the opportunity to continue to grow in my own personal journey, right? I really appreciate that. So let's get into it. Starting off with the ego, our soul, right? Or the divine energy spark is the battery for the human body. It is an immortal, limitless fragment of our original light which is connected to source. Okay. Now, while the ego is a natural part of the human design, the ego death is physically impossible. Okay. The ego death is simply moving away from an ego-dominant perspective experience to a more soul-centered perspective and experience. Okay, now the ego is formed in many different ways. It really just depends on our own individual circumstances. Now, from birth, we are given a name, a nationality, a culture, a religion, a family history, beliefs, and morals, which we learn to attach our sense of self to. Okay, this of course is different from our own innate abilities and beliefs. For these, as we grow up, we receive either positive or negative feedback. Okay, now this feedback teaches us what is socially acceptable and what is not. From this feedback, we either learn to do more of the things that are acceptable and less of what is not, or we learn to suppress the less agreeable things. And it's through the cycle that our egos are formed. Okay. Now, for example, please keep in mind, I try to keep this as generalized as possible so we can each relate this back to our own experiences, right, to give you understanding on how this fits into your own unique story. Now, for example, maybe you liked things that were specific to your opposite gender, and this was heavily condemned by your elderly figures in your life, so you learned to suppress it. Now, I did come up with a snowball analogy to give you a better understanding of how the ego is formed. Now, take that condemned part and place it in the center of a ball, and as you continue to grow and develop, you put more and more negative traits and abilities into this ball, right? Adding more positive traits and abilities to the outside as if to cushion the negative. Now, rolling down the metaphorical hill that is aging and growing until you reach the bottom, which is adulthood. At this point, our egos are fully formed, which either result in people pleasing. Now, how many of you can say if you continuously putting the needs, wants, and desires of others before you, do you receive negative feedback? Okay, I feel it is very slim when you're a people pleaser, right? You please people to the point where they don't feel the need to look at you any deeper than face value of what they are receiving from you, right? Now, or we have an overinflated sense of self, a grandiose self-image. This overinflated ego was created to hide the more fragile parts within, right? So we've all seen someone who's extremely egotistical, right, that has narcissistic tendencies. Keep in mind, when you have an inflated ego, a grandiose sense of self, it doesn't always translate to narcissism, right? I can guarantee you at any point in our life, there is probably a prime example where we all have exhibited narcissistic tendencies. Okay, that doesn't automatically imply that we're narcissists. Okay, there is a big difference, and I do feel like the spiritual community needs to be more specific when we talk about narcissism, right, and the different things associated with that, because there's this overall sense of, well, they're a narcissist, right, because they do all these things, when in reality that person might necessarily be a narcissist. They might just have narcissistic tendencies to hide the insecure, fragile parts that they hide within them, that they are deeply traumatized by, right? And it's a defense mechanism, whereas there are narcissists who have no sense of empathy, no sense of compassion. They can't see anyone outside of themselves. The world literally revolves around them, and there is a big, massive difference between the two, and maybe we'll speak on that one day. Anyway, I digress. Let's move back to what I wrote, okay? Now, it's only through questioning one's reality which leads to self-discovery. It's only through questioning one's reality which leads to the quest of self-discovery can we detach ourselves from this false sense of identity. What triggers self-discovery is again different for each individual and their circumstances, but once we start detaching from the ideals that please others, can we make space for the things that please the soul to come forth, okay? Now, sifting through the ego to reach the deeply held trauma is not an easy task or can be completed right away. Now, majority of the time we have layers. Okay, we've built layers into hiding the parts of ourselves and the traumas associated with this suppression of the condemnation, of the denial of what is innate to us, okay? Now, shifting where we operate from is a process, okay? One size does not fit all. Now, this process requires responsibility, accountability, and consistency, along with the desire to change one's life. Now, this is just a very general, broad account of the ego. Obviously, we are all different. We have different circumstances, different family units, and all of that, okay? So, to go further into this would really have to require one to be aware of all the different facets that one can go through in their life, which I personally just don't have the mental capacity to understand, right? I don't feel like anyone really has. I do feel like it's up to you, your own process, and how that works for you. Okay, please, by all means, if you're going through this, working through your ego, right? I encourage you not to compare yourself to the journey of others. It's going to set you back further. Now, one of the things that I did want to share with you guys that really helped me with working through my ego and really detaching from it, right, was the pranayama breath of fire. Now, I absolutely love Kundalini yoga from the first moment that I stumbled upon it. I was just absolutely in love. Now, this pranayama, the breath of fire, really helped me strengthen my own inner voice and quieten my ego, right? So I'll give you guys a quick run through on this pranayama. Of course, there is so many yoga YouTube teachers that can show you in a more in-depth way. So pretty much the inhale is passive, the exhale is active, and when you're exhaling through your nose, you are contracting your belly button to your spine, right? Now, the thing that I really enjoy is you put your arms up to a 45-degree angle with your fingers and hands like this, right? And you hold, and you do it for at least a minute, and then you build yourself up to a 3-minute mark. This is absolutely beautiful for you to learn how to strengthen your own inner voice, to overpower your ego to the point where your ego will just be background noise. It won't even matter. It won't affect you, right? Because when we're doing something physically straining and repetitive, our egos are the first to jump in and say, no, we can stop doing that. You're puffed now, you're tired, your arms are sore, your legs are sore, let's just quit, let's just stop, right? And it's through this pranayama that you really teach yourself to push through those boundaries that your ego has created for you. So guys, I really hope that you enjoy this. Again, thank you so much for helping me work through my own personal difficulties. I really appreciate you. Let me know if you like the information, if you want me to continue doing these videos. It'll be greatly appreciated. See you later.